You've talked people down before. 14 times in 9 years. 14 situations where someone was standing at the edge of something irreversible and your voice was the only thing between them and it. You've talked down a father on a bridge, a teenager in a school hallway, a woman in a parking garage who had already made up her mind before you arrived. 14 times. 14 people still alive. You're good at this because you understand one fundamental truth about crisis negotiation. It is never about the gun. It is never about the hostages. It is never about the demands. It is always entirely about the person holding the weapon and the specific wound that put them there. Find the wound. Name it. Stay with it. That's the whole job. You've walked into this bank with your earpiece in and your notes on the floor plan and your mind already running the first contact protocol. You've done this enough times that the fear is manageable, present but manageable. And then the man inside gets on the phone. And he says your name. Not your title, not your rank. Your name. The one only people who knew you before any of this would use. And the fear stops being manageable. Level 1. Who you are. Let's go back. You joined the force at 23. Patrol for 4 years, then detective track, then, after an incident during a domestic call that your supervisor described in his report as an instinctive de-escalation of an armed situation that prevented at least 2 fatalities. You were recommended for crisis negotiation training. You were good at it immediately, not because you were calm, you weren't not naturally, but because you were a listener. You had always been a listener, the kind of person people told things to without fully understanding why. The kind of person who could sit in silence with someone else's pain without needing to fix it immediately. In negotiation, that's not a soft skill. That's the skill. Your personal life is the part nobody asks about in the commendations. A marriage that lasted 6 years and ended without drama. Just the slow erosion of 2 people who kept choosing the job over the kitchen table. No children. An apartment with good light and too many books and a standing order at a Thai place 2 blocks away. You are, by every professional metric, exactly the person you were trained to be. What you are not, what nobody trained you for, is this. Level 2, the situation. Here's what you've been briefed. 9:42 this morning. A man entered the First Central Branch on Meridian Avenue carrying a concealed weapon. A handgun, make and model still unconfirmed. He cleared the lobby in under 4 minutes. 8 hostages. 3 tellers, a loan officer, a security guard who is currently zip-tied to a chair with a non-life-threatening laceration above his left eye, and 3 customers who had the wrong morning. No shots fired. No casualties. He has been cooperative with the initial responding units to the degree that he spoke to them at all, which is to say he told them to send a negotiator and then stopped answering the exterior phone. That was 40 minutes ago. You arrived 11 minutes ago. You've reviewed the floor plan, the exterior camera feeds, what little the responding officers observed through the glass before he pulled the blinds. The profile so far: organized, controlled, non-random target selection. He chose a Tuesday morning at a branch with low foot traffic. He came prepared. He knew the layout. He has a specific objective, you just don't know what it is yet. And he asked for you, not a negotiator. You, by name, which means this isn't random. Which means the wound you need to find has something to do with you. Level 3, the recognition. You get on the phone. Standard opening. Calm, measured, first name basis from the start. You don't know his name yet, so you introduce yourself and ask for his. It's a technique. It establishes reciprocity. It's the first small bridge. He doesn't give you his name. He says, I know who you are. I've been waiting for you specifically. Do you remember the Alderman case? And your stomach drops through the floor. Because you remember the Alderman case. 4 years ago, a factory dispute that escalated. A man named Daniel Reeves, who barricaded himself in a warehouse with 2 supervisors he believed had engineered the firing of 30 workers, including him, to hit a quarterly bonus target. You were the negotiator. You spent 9 hours on that phone. 9 hours building trust, building a bridge, making Daniel Reeves believe that if he walked out, the truth would come out with him, that there would be accountability, that the story wouldn't just disappear. He walked out. He was arrested, tried, convicted on 2 counts of unlawful confinement. Sentenced to 4 years. The supervisors were never charged with anything. The story disappeared. You gave evidence at trial. Accurate evidence, you reported what happened. But you always knew that your testimony, technically truthful as it was, had helped put a man in a cage for doing something desperate in response to something real. Daniel Reeves served his full sentence. He was released 8 weeks ago. You know his voice now. Level 4, the weight of it. You put the phone against your chest for a moment. Your supervisor is in your ear immediately. What's wrong? What did he say? You tell him the name. You hear the silence on the other end that tells you your supervisor is running the same calculation you are. You have a conflict of interest. Textbook definition. The man inside that building has a direct and specific grievance that involves you personally. You should step back. You should hand this to your backup negotiator, Chun, who is standing 15 feet away and is excellent at this job. You know that. And you also know something else. Daniel Reeves asked for you specifically. He waited 40 minutes in that bank with 8 people on the floor because he wanted you on the other end of that phone. Not to punish you. If he wanted to punish you, there are simpler ways. He wanted you to hear something. He wanted to tell you something in front of witnesses, the hostages, your team, whoever eventually listens to the recordings. He wanted you to be the one who understood why. And here is the thing that is going to keep you on that phone despite every protocol telling you otherwise. You already understand why. That's the part that's been living in you for 4 years. Quiet and heavy. The part that surfaced every time you drove past the courthouse. You did your job correctly and it still wasn't right and you have never fully put that down. So you make the call your supervisor isn't going to like. You stay on the phone. Level 5, the conversation. You get back on the phone. And Daniel Reeves talks. Not in the way unstable people talk. Not circular, not pressured, not the runaway logic of someone who has left the rails. He talks the way someone talks who has been rehearsing this conversation for 4 years. He tells you about what happened after the trial. His wife, who waited 18 months and then didn't. His apartment, gone. His industry, he was a machinist, skilled work, the kind of job that takes years to learn. Blacklisted him after the conviction. He spent 2 years after release trying to get work and finding out that a record follows you into every room before you do. He tells you about the supervisors. How one of them was promoted. How the factory eventually closed anyway, 6 months after the trial, once the quarterly bonus had been paid and the relevant parties had moved on. How 30 families absorbed that in silence because what else do you do? He tells you he's not going to hurt anyone. You believe him. Not because you need to, because you know how to read a voice, and his is not the voice of someone building toward violence. It's the voice of someone who has run out of rooms. He tells you what he wants. He wants a journalist inside the building. On record. He wants to give a statement about the factory, about the trial, about what happened to the 30 families, with witnesses. He wants the story that disappeared to undisappear, in front of cameras, on record, before he walks out. That's it. That's the whole demand. Level 6, your options. Here is where it stops being a negotiation and starts being something you don't have a protocol for. Because you understand the demand. You understand the man. And you have to decide in real time with 8 civilians on a floor and your career and your conscience all in the same room, what you actually do. Option 1. Standard resolution. You work the call. You buy time. You let the tactical team position. You find the moment of voluntary surrender and you take it. You've done it 13 times before. Daniel Reeves goes back into the system. The story stays buried. The hostages go home. You go home. Everything is fine and nothing is resolved. Option 2. Negotiate the demand. You take his request seriously. You tell your supervisor. You tell them a journalist with a camera is the off-ramp. That it's unconventional but it's non-violent and it ends this without anyone getting hurt. You fight for it internally. Maybe they agree. Maybe they don't. If they don't, you're back at option 1 with less time and more tension. Option 3, you go in. Unarmed. No tactical backup. You tell Daniel Reeves you're coming inside to talk face to face. The way this conversation deserves to happen. It's against protocol. It's against direct orders if your supervisor says no. It puts you in the room with a man holding a gun. But it also puts you in the room with a man who has been waiting 4 years to be heard, and sometimes the only way to end something is to walk into it. Option 4, you tell him the truth. Not negotiator truth. Not managed truth. The actual thing you've been carrying since the day you gave evidence and watched the gavel come down. You tell Daniel Reeves on a recorded line in front of your entire team that you know what he's saying is true, that you've known, that the weight of that is real, that you're sorry. It won't fix anything. It won't get his wife back or his apartment or his industry, but it might be the only thing that actually reaches him. And it will cost you. It will cost you significantly, because that's not a negotiation tactic. That's a confession. And confessions, even honest ones, have consequences. Level 7. The thing about being good at this. Here is what nobody tells you about being a crisis negotiator. The skill that makes you good, the listening, the empathy, the ability to sit inside someone else's reality without flinching. That skill doesn't turn off when the call ends. You carry everyone. The father on the bridge. The teenager in the hallway. The woman in the parking garage. You carry Daniel Reeves. You've carried him for 4 years. And here he is on the other end of a phone, asking you to do the one thing your entire career has trained you to manage around. Feel the actual weight of it. Not perform understanding. Not use understanding as a tool to achieve a tactical outcome. Actually feel it and let it matter and let it change what you do next. The best negotiators in the world will tell you the job is about building a bridge. Walk them across, get them to safety, close the incident. That's the job. But sometimes the bridge only works if you're willing to stand on it too. And sometimes standing on it means admitting that the last time, 4 years ago, you built it pointing in the wrong direction. 8 hostages. 1 man with a gun. For options. And the version of you that walked into this situation and the version of you the job requires are quietly, irreconcilably different people. What do you do? Closing, the question. Here's where we leave you. Phone in hand. 8 people on the floor inside. A man who asked for you specifically because you're the one person in this situation who already knows he was right. You didn't put him in that building. You didn't fire those 30 workers. You didn't promote the supervisor or bury the story or let the factory close 6 months later once the money had moved. But you were the voice that walked him out last time. And the voice, it turns out, is not a neutral instrument. Carries weight. Carries obligation. And when you use it to build a bridge, you are responsible for where the bridge leads. So here is the question you take home from this, the one that doesn't resolve just because the incident does. What do you owe the people you save? Not legally. Not professionally. What do you owe them? Because the answer to that question is the answer to what you do with that phone. And the answer to what you do with that phone is the answer to what kind of person you've been building yourself into for the last 9 years. 14 people alive because of your voice. What does your voice owe them? Drop it in the comments. Because this one doesn't have a clean resolution. And I think you already know that.